I was sitting in a restaurant the other day, watching two conversations happening at tables right next to each other. Table one, two guys in suits talking about investments, real estate deals, how their money's working for them while they sleep. Table two, two other guys also working hard, talking about overtime, about bills, about how they need their next paycheck just to make it through the month. Same restaurant, same day, same city, but two completely different worlds. And here's what hit me. It wasn't about who had more money in that moment. It was about how they thought about money, how they talked about money, how they related to money. One group saw money as a tool, the other group saw money as a master. And that right there, that's the gap. Not the gap between the rich and the poor, the gap between the mindsets of the rich and the poor. You know, most people think wealth is about luck or connections or being born into the right family. And sometimes that helps. But I've watched people who were closest to me rise from nothing and people with everything fall apart. The difference, it's not what's in their bank account. It's what's in their head. It's the stories they tell themselves, the beliefs they carry, the way they see opportunities versus obstacles. And here's something nobody wants to hear. Most people are programmed for poverty, not because they're not smart enough, not because they don't work hard enough, but because they inherited a way of thinking about money that keeps them exactly where they are. Your parents taught you what they knew, and their parents taught them, and so on. But what if what they knew was designed to keep you in the same place they were? What if everything you were taught about money was wrong? Stay with me. Because what I'm about to share isn't just theory. This is the difference between working for money your whole life and having money work for you. Let's begin. This next part might sting a little. The entire system, the way it's built, is designed to create employees, not owners. Think about it. From the time you're 5 years old, what are you told? Go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a job, get a paycheck, be safe. And that sounds reasonable, right? Except that's not the game the wealthy are playing. The wealthy don't work for paychecks. They create systems that generate paychecks for other people. I remember a conversation I had years ago with someone who'd built real wealth. And he said something that stopped me cold. He said, the moment you take a paycheck, you stop thinking like an owner, you start thinking like an employee. And that's the most expensive mindset shift you'll ever make. I didn't get it at first, but then he explained it. When you work for someone else, your mindset becomes limited. You think in terms of hours, in terms of what your boss will approve, in terms of security. But when you're an owner, when you're an entrepreneur, you think differently. You think in terms of leverage, in terms of systems, in terms of how do I make money while I sleep? And that shift, that right there is everything. Now, I'm not saying working a job is bad. I'm not saying everyone needs to quit tomorrow and start a business. What I'm saying is you need to understand the game. Because right now, most people are playing a game where the rules are rigged against them and they don't even know it. You go to school, you take on debt, student loans, then you graduate, you get a job, you start paying off those loans. But now you need a car to get to that job, so you take on more debt. Then you need a place to live, so you take on more debt. A mortgage, credit cards, car payments. And before you know it, you're trapped, not by choice, but by design. Because when you owe money, you can't take risks. You can't leave that job you hate. You can't bet on yourself. You become controllable, and the system loves that. You know what's crazy? The education system never teaches you about money. They teach you history, science, math, literature, but they don't teach you how money actually works, how taxes work, how debt works, how investments work. Why? Because the system doesn't want you to know. The system needs workers. It needs people who will show up, trade their time for money, pay their taxes, and not ask too many questions. But here's the reality. The rules are different for the wealthy. The wealthy use debt as leverage. They use taxes as strategy. They own assets that appreciate while other people own liabilities that depreciate. And the gap between these two worlds, it's massive, not because one group is smarter, but because one group learned a different set of rules. So here's the first mindset shift. Stop seeing yourself as an employee, start seeing yourself as an owner. Even if you have a job right now, you're not just an employee. You're the CEO of your own life. You're the entrepreneur of your own future. And every choice you make is either building your empire or building someone else's. Every dollar you spend is a vote for the life you want. Every hour you invest is either creating freedom or creating dependence. So ask yourself, whose empire am I building right now? What I'm about to say changed everything for me. Education is the key to success. Now, before you get upset, let me clarify. Knowledge is powerful. Learning is essential. I'm not anti-education, but the education system as it exists today, it's teaching you to be obedient, not wealthy. Think about it. You spend 12 years in school learning information that's outdated by the time you graduate. Then you spend 4 more years in college, taking on massive debt, learning theories that may or may not apply to the real world. And then you enter the workforce and realize that most of what you learn doesn't actually matter. Because the real skills you need, negotiation, sales, financial literacy, networking, investing, they didn't teach you any of that. I remember asking one of my teachers once, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and said, because the government doesn't let us teach that. We teach what we're told to teach. And I thought, that's strange. Why wouldn't they want people to understand money? Why wouldn't they want people to be financially literate? And then it hit me, because financially literate people don't need the system. They don't need a boss to take care of them. They don't need to depend on a pension or Social Security. They take care of themselves. And that makes them dangerous to a system that runs on dependence. Here's what they should teach in school, but don't. The difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. Your house? That's not an asset. Not unless it's generating income. It's costing you mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance. That's a liability. Your car? Liability. Loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. But stocks, real estate that generates rental income, businesses, intellectual property, those are assets. And here's the key. Rich people accumulate assets. Poor people accumulate liabilities thinking they're assets. That's the game. Another thing they don't teach, the power of compound interest. Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. He said, those who understand it, earn it. Those who don't, pay it. But they don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you that if you start investing $500 a month at age 25, by the time you're 65, you could have millions, depending on your returns. But if you wait until you're 35, you've lost a decade of compound growth. And that decade could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. They don't teach you that time is your biggest asset when you're young. Not money, time. They teach you to memorize dates and formulas. But they don't teach you about taxes, how the rich use tax laws to pay less, how entrepreneurs get deductions that employees don't. They don't teach you about debt, how the rich use it to buy assets, while the poor use it to buy liabilities. They teach you to be an employee, to trade time for money, to depend on someone else for your security. And that's by design. So here's what you need to understand. Your real education begins when you stop depending on the system to teach you. When you start reading books, listening to people who've actually built wealth, learning from their mistakes instead of making your own. When you take responsibility for your own financial education, because the system isn't going to save you, your degree isn't going to make you rich, your job isn't going to set you free. Only you can do that. And it starts with unlearning what you were taught and learning what actually works. Most people never hear this. The paycheck feels like freedom, like security, like success. But here's the hard truth. The paycheck is a cage, not because getting paid is bad, but because depending on it changes how you think. When your survival depends on that next check, you can't take risks. You can't say no to a boss you don't respect. You can't leave a job that's draining your soul. You become stuck, and your mind knows it. So it starts to justify. It starts to rationalize. The money's good. The benefits are okay. At least it's stable. Meanwhile, you're trading the best hours of your best years for security. But here's the question. Is it really secure? Companies go under. Industries change. Technology disrupts everything. Jobs disappear. And all that security you thought you had, gone. But when you own something, when you've built something, no one can take that from you. If one business fails, you start another. If one income stream dries up, you have others. That's real security, not dependence on someone else's decision about whether you're valuable enough to keep around. I'm not saying everyone needs to quit their job tomorrow. That's not realistic. But what I am saying is, you need to start thinking like an owner, even if you're still an employee. You need to build something on the side, invest in assets, create multiple streams of income, because the moment you have options is the moment you're truly free. The paycheck can't control you anymore. Your boss can't control you anymore. You're working because you choose to, not because you have to. And that changes everything. Here's something that shifts the entire game. Most people are taught debt is bad, get out of debt as fast as you can. And for consumer debt, that's true. Credit card debt, car loans for depreciating assets, student loans you can't afford, that kind of debt, it's killing you. But here's what they don't tell you. There's good debt and bad debt. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket. Good debt puts money in your pocket. The wealthy understand this. They use debt as leverage. They borrow money at 3% interest to buy real estate that generates 8% returns. They refinance to lower their rates. They use other people's money to build wealth. Meanwhile, the average person is drowning in bad debt, paying 18% interest on credit cards, financing cars they can't afford, trapped in a cycle they can't escape. And here's why. Because they were taught the wrong relationship with debt. They were taught debt is for consumption, not for creation. Let me give you an example. You have $50,000. You could use it to buy a car, a nice car, brand new. The moment you drive it off the lot, it's worth $45,000. In 5 years, it's worth $25,000. That's $25,000 gone, just disappeared. Or you could use that $50,000 as a down payment on a rental property, get a mortgage for the rest. The rent covers the mortgage. The property appreciates over time. In 5 years, that property might be worth $350,000. You've got equity, you've got cash flow, you've got an asset. Same $50,000. Two completely different outcomes. And this is the game. Poor people use money to look rich. Rich people use money to get rich. Poor people buy liabilities and call them assets. Rich people buy assets and build wealth. And the system wants you to stay in debt, because when you're in debt, you're controllable. You need that job. You can't take risks. You can't bet on yourself. You're trapped. But when you understand how to use debt strategically, when you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, you can start playing offense instead of defense. You can start building instead of surviving. Here's a truth that most people never realize. The key to wealth isn't making money, it's owning things. When you buy a stock, you're not just buying a piece of paper, you're buying ownership in a company. When you buy real estate, you're not just buying a property, you're buying an asset that generates income and appreciates over time. When you start a business, you're not just creating a job for yourself, you're building something that has value beyond your time. Ownership is the game, and most people never play it. Think about this. When you go to work, who benefits most from your labor? You get a paycheck, but your employer gets the profit from your work. They get the growth. They get the equity. You're building their wealth, not yours. Now, I'm not saying working for someone is wrong, but I am saying you need to be building your own wealth at the same time. You need to own something, because ownership is leverage. Ownership is freedom. Ownership is how you escape the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Let me break this down even simpler. You spend $100 at a store. That's a one-time transaction. You got something. They got your money. Done. But what if you owned stock in that store? Now, every time someone spends money there, you profit. Not just once, every time. That's the power of ownership. One transaction becomes a lifetime of returns. And this applies to everything: real estate, businesses, intellectual property, investments. The wealthy understand this. They don't work for money. They own things that generate money. And the gap between those two mindsets, it's everything. So ask yourself, what do I own? Not what do I have? What do I own? Because if the answer is nothing, that's your starting point. Start building, start investing, start creating. Own something, even if it's small, because ownership compounds. And over time, it's the difference between working until you die is less than #0. 5# is greater than, and building a life of freedom. Now let's talk about a skill that separates the rich from everyone else. Financial literacy. Not just knowing how to make money, but knowing how to manage it, how to grow it, how to protect it. And here's the problem. Most people have no idea how money actually works. They know how to spend it, they're experts at that, but they don't know how to make it work for them. They don't understand taxes. They don't understand investing. They don't understand compound interest or inflation or opportunity cost. And because they don't understand these things, they stay broke. Not because they don't make enough money, but because they don't know what to do with the money they have. I've seen people make 6 figures in life paycheck to paycheck, and I've seen people make $40,000 a year and retire millionaires. The difference? Financial literacy. One group learned how to manage money, the other group didn't. Here's what financial literacy actually means. Understanding that your net worth matters more than your income. Knowing that savings without investing is just losing money to inflation. Understanding tax strategies, how to pay less legally, how to maximize deductions. Knowing the difference between good debt and bad debt. Understanding risk. Not avoiding it, but managing it. Thinking in terms of cash flow. not just salary. And none of this is taught in school. You have to seek it out yourself. The good news, this information is available. Books, courses, mentors, people who've done it before. The bad news, most people won't seek it out. They'll complain about being broke, but they won't read a book about investing. They'll blame the system, but they won't learn how the system actually works. They'll stay stuck because learning feels like work. But here's what you need to understand. Financial education is the best investment you'll ever make because it compounds. Every book you read, every skill you learn, every mistake you avoid because someone else already made it, it all adds up. And over time, that knowledge becomes your greatest asset. Not your degree, not your job, your knowledge. Because knowledge can't be taken from you. Knowledge creates opportunities. Knowledge builds wealth. So if there's one thing you take from this, it's this. Commit to becoming financially literate. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, start reading, start learning, start asking questions, because your financial future depends on it. Now we're getting to the core. Everything we've talked about, it all starts with one thing, your mindset. Because you can have all the knowledge in the world. You can know every strategy, every tactic. But if your mind is still programmed for poverty, you'll sabotage yourself every time. I've seen it happen over and over. Someone starts making more money, and instead of investing it, they upgrade their lifestyle. Bigger house, nicer car, more expensive habits, and before they know it, they're right back where they started. Because their internal thermostat is set to a certain level, and anytime they rise above it, they unconsciously pull themselves back down. This is what people don't understand about wealth. It's not just about the strategies. It's about who you have to become to build and keep it. You have to change your relationship with money, your beliefs about what's possible, your identity. Poor people say, I can't afford it. Rich people say, how can I afford it? You see the difference? One shuts down the brain, the other opens it up. One is a statement, the other is a question. And questions are powerful because they force your brain to look for solutions instead of accepting limitations. Poor people see money as scarce. Rich people see money as abundant. Poor people think in terms of trading time for money. Rich people think in terms of leverage and systems. Poor people avoid risk. Rich people manage risk. Poor people blame others. Rich people take responsibility. And all of this, it's mindset. It's not about being born into wealth. It's about choosing to think differently. It's about waking up every day and deciding, I'm not going to accept the limitations I was taught. I'm going to create something different. Here's something deeper. Most people don't fear failure. They fear success that demands a new version of themselves. They fear having to become someone they don't recognize, someone who makes different choices, someone who thinks bigger. And that fear, it keeps them small. But you're here, you're listening, you're willing to change, and that's everything. Here's a practice that changed everything for me. Start paying attention to your language. Notice when you say things like, I can't afford it. That's not for people like me. Rich people are lucky. I'm not good with money. Those are poverty beliefs. And they're running in the background, sabotaging you. Replace them. How can I afford it? If they can do it, so can I. Wealth is created, not inherited. I'm learning to master money. Words shape thoughts. Thoughts shape actions. Actions shape reality. Change your words. Change your life. All right. So now you know the truth. You understand the game. You understand the mindset. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. So let's talk about the practice. What do you actually do? First, audit your life and don't lie to yourself this time. Look at where your money's going. Every dollar, are you spending on liabilities or assets? Are you investing in your future or funding someone else's? Be honest, brutally honest, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Second, start investing. Even if it's small, but start like you mean it. $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can. The amount doesn't matter as much as building the habit. Because when you start investing, you start thinking like an investor. You start seeing opportunities everywhere. You start understanding how money grows. And that shift, it's everything. Third, learn a high income skill, something that gives you real leverage. Sales, marketing, coding, design, writing, something that allows you to generate income outside of a traditional job. Because here's the reality, you can't save your way to wealth. You need to earn more and then invest that difference. High income skills give you leverage, they give you options, they give you freedom. Fourth, build multiple income streams, not tomorrow, but systematically. Your job is one, but what else? A side business? Rental income? Dividend stocks? Royalties? Freelancing? The wealthy have 7 to 10 income streams on average. The average person has one. You don't need to build all of them tomorrow, but you need to start building, because when you have multiple streams, no single failure can destroy you. You're diversified, you're protected, you're free. Fifth, surround yourself with people who think differently. No excuses. Your network determines your net worth. If everyone around you is broke and complaining, you'll stay broke and complain. But if you surround yourself with people who are building, investing, growing, you'll rise with them. Find mentors, join communities, invest in relationships with people who've done what you want to do, not to use them, but to learn from them, to be inspired by them, to grow alongside them. Sixth, commit to lifelong learning, but only if you're willing to apply it. Read books, take courses, listen to podcasts, watch videos like this one, but don't just consume, apply. Take one idea from every book, implement it, test it, learn from it, because knowledge without application is worthless. But knowledge with action, that's how empires are built. Seventh, be patient but not passive. Wealth isn't built overnight. It's built through consistent action over time. Small investments, smart decisions, discipline, patience. And before you know it, years have passed, and you're no longer the person who started this journey. You're someone who owns assets, someone who has multiple income streams, someone who's financially free. But it takes time, and most people quit before they see results. Don't be most people. So here we are. You've made it this far. That says something about you. It says you're serious, you're ready. You're done accepting the limitations you were taught. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. You were born into a system designed to keep you poor, not because anyone hates you, but because the system needs workers. It needs people who will trade their time for money, people who will consume, people who will stay in debt. But you don't have to play that game. You can learn different rules. You can think differently. You can build differently. And when you do, everything changes. The gap between the rich and the poor isn't about money. It's about mindset. It's about education. It's about ownership. And all of those things you can learn, you can develop, you can master, starting today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Take one idea from this video, just one, and Implement it this week. Maybe it's auditing your finances. Maybe it's opening an investment account. Maybe it's reading a book about money. Just do one thing, because one thing leads to another, and another, and another. And before you know it, you're living a completely different life. You're not trapped. You're not stuck. You're not powerless. You've just been playing a game with the wrong rules. But now you know the truth. And the truth sets you free. You weren't broken. You were uninformed. And now you're not. So go build something. Own something. Create something. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Start now. Because your financial freedom, it's not going to come from a job. It's not going to come from the system. It's going to come from you, from the choices you make, the knowledge you gain, the risks you take. You've got this. Now, go make it happen. If this resonated with you, I want you to do something. Not for me, for you. In the comments, write one specific action you're going to take this week to change your financial future. Make it public. Make it real. Because when you declare it, you're more likely to do it. And when you're ready for the next step in this journey, to watch the next video. It's called Forgive Yourself. Because here's what I've learned. You can't build wealth while carrying shame about your past financial mistakes. You have to forgive yourself first. Let go and move forward. That video will show you how. Stay hungry, stay humble, and keep building.